Welcome back to Season 3 of the Animal Highlight that's focused on animals and biosecurity and was extracted from the Animal Turn podcast focused on the same theme. This season has been sponsored by Animals in Philosophy, Politics, Law and Ethics, A.P.P.L.E, as well as the Biosecurities and Urban Governance Research Collective. I'm joined by co-host Amanda Bunten-Walberg, who, at the time of recording, was a PhD candidate at Queen's University School of Environmental Studies. Her research explored more than human ethics in contagious contexts through the case study of bats and COVID-19. Nandi is particularly interested in how more than human ethics, critical race theory, queer theory, and biopolitical theory might guide humans towards developing more ethical relationships with animals, particularly those who are understood as diseased. In today's episode, Amanda talks about one of the most tested on animals in the world, rats. She discusses how rats have been used in labs and the standardization of their experiences. She contrasts this with the rich life worlds of rats who live freely in multi-species communities. Enjoy. Hi, Mandy. Welcome to the Animal Highlight.
Hi, Claudia.
So I think you mentioned that we're going to be speaking about rats today.
Yeah, I want to revisit them today. And I know they were highlighted, I believe, in Season 3, Episode 3, but I want to take another look at them.
Yeah, there's so much to think and say about rats, so I'm really excited to talk about them. And of course, we spoke about them a fair bit in the episode with Christos as well. So this is delightful.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, I guess before I start, I just want to mention that in making this highlight, I did draw mostly from the books Rat by Jonathan Burt, Pleasurable Kingdom by Jonathan Balcombe, and also from Lisa Fawcett's chapter about rats in the book Animal Subjects 2.0. So if any folks are interested in checking those out. And
great, I'll put them in the show notes.
Thank you. They're all fantastic reads. And I want to revisit rats today because it really seems impossible to talk about animal experimentation without talking about rats, who are among the most exploited creatures in laboratories. And just to give you a sense of the sheer magnitude of rat exploitation in laboratories, a 2021 article by Larry Carbone estimates that 111.5 million rats and mice were used in animal experimentation between 2017 and 2018 in the United States alone. And of these rats and mice, Carbone estimates that 44.5 million underwent potentially painful experiments. And then, of course, rats are also strongly associated with disease and pestilence, most notably the bubonic plague. But these exploitative relationships and reductive understandings overlook just what incredible beings rats are. So rats are a part of the order of Mammalia called Rodentia, which has the greatest number of species. And the word Rodentia derives from the Latin rodere, which means to gnaw. And rats have continuously growing incisors, so gnawing is crucial for preventing their teeth from growing too long, even in some cases from curling over. It's kind of amazing.
Are beavers also rodents?
I believe so, yes.
They are, right, yeah. Interesting, okay.
And
sorry,
yeah,
keep going.
So gnawing, no, nothing to be sorry about. I think it's fascinating to kind of put them in the context of some of their relations. And also to understand that gnawing isn't frivolous for them. It's this crucial activity. But they're also really admirable in their resilience and their adaptability, which are evidenced in part by the facts that they inhabit almost all parts of the world except polar regions, and that they live in all sorts of environments ranging from like trees to subway stations. There's even rats living and thriving on the South Pacific island of Renit, which is uninhabitable to humans because of extreme levels of radioactivity. So incredibly resilient. Given their geographic and environmental range, it's really unsurprising that rats are quite diverse. The author Jonathan Burt points out some examples of rat diversity, highlighting the Sumatran bamboo rat, who can weigh up to 9 pounds, which is massive. Or the blind mole rat who lives underground and can tunnel at a rate of 1 meter in 17 minutes.
Wow.
I know. Such diversity and range. And what's most marvelous to me about rats is their really complex emotional lives. They're incredibly social. So, for example, wild Norway rats, who are also known as brown rats or common rats, they live in these large colonies that can house as many as 150 individuals. And given their social nature, it's really unsurprising when rats are isolated in these barren laboratory cages that they suffer incredibly. The ethologist Jonathan Balcombe discusses how rats take great pleasure in social touch. Many enjoy being petted and tickled by familiar humans or other rats, and they frequently seek out both forms of touch. Often they'll let out joyful chirps and even laughter in response to being petted and tickled. Now, one of my absolute favorite things about rats is what is known as bruxing and boggling. Have you heard of this at all?
Bruxing and boggling? No.
Well,
You sound like oddly Canadian terms. Like I can imagine like Canadians going, "Oh, I'm just going to go bruxel and boggle." Like it sounds like I don't know. It just sounds like something you do with snow and tobogganing. But anyway.
well, I think to me the names evoke like, yeah, just sort of a delightful weirdness that I think is quite apt. But really, what it is bruxing refers to when rats grind their front incisors together. And then boggling refers to the sort of side effect of this, where their eyes actually will bulge in and out of their sockets. And
This does not sound pleasant at all. This does not, like, if my teeth just rub something the wrong way, I get chills. I get completely like just brrr. But the idea of like just sitting and gnawing so much so that your eyes are boggling is okay.
I know, it makes my skin crawl to imagine my body doing that. But in the case of rats, at least in the right context, it can be a sign of them feeling really content and happy. And if you go on YouTube and watch videos of rats bruxing and boggling, it's just heart melting and delightfully weird to watch and so sweet.
Yeah, rats are really gorgeous. I did think for a long time about, because there are lots of rats out there who need homes. So lots of rats that come from facilities, whether it's testing facilities or people, oftentimes people buy mice or rats because they've got pet snakes or whatever. And then they, I don't know how, but people always somehow end up with an abundance of rats and mice in their homes. So they're often kind of up for adoption in many places. And I really did think about it for a long time, because they are really social and they love to hang out and play. They're quite gorgeous, and everyone I know who's ended up adopting rats have become like complete rat lovers. They're great little animals.
I similarly have considered it. And actually, it's funny that you bring this up, because I'll talk about it now. I was going to end the highlight today by just letting folks know, just like what you said, that rats are these delightful creatures and people should consider adopting them, because animal rescues are, like you said, constantly looking for humans to provide caring and enriching homes for rescued rats. And I wanted to put a plug in, for example, to Ladybird Sanctuary, which is a couple hours from where I live. It's in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And at the time of this recording, Ladybird Sanctuary is looking for someone to adopt two rats named Addie and Kendra, who I believe are siblings. And they're just incredibly active and happy, despite enduring a lot of human neglect and really harsh conditions prior to be taken in by the sanctuary. So yeah, if folks, after listening to this highlight, are as delighted by rats as I am, they really might want to consider adopting some.
No, thank you. That's so great. I think rats are they're incredible animals with very diverse, varied histories. Speaking to Christos about some of the places rats move and the varied spaces they operate in, kind of the persecution they've faced as well throughout history has been quite illuminating. But I think in recent times, we've also really come to appreciate their kind of social dynamism. There's another, in the previous highlight, I think I spoke about the book by Dawn Debila, where she focuses on pests, and she's just got this beautiful kind of script of how, rats navigate the early morning of a city. And there are just, they are quite remarkable. And one of my favorite words with rats, and I hope I'm getting it right. I tried to quickly Google while you were talking, but unsuccessfully. So everyone who's listening, double check me. But it's called thygomaxic, which means that rats, how they feel their way through the world. So it's not surprising what you say about touch. Their whiskers, they feel most comfortable if they are touching something. So their whiskers touch the side of a wall, and that's how they actually navigate through the dark and through a lot of spaces, is through touch and using their whiskers to kind of get a sense of the size of different spaces. So they like to walk closely to walls. And as far as I can remember, the word for that is thygomaxic. So here we now know that rats, what is it? They boggle.
Braxton boggle.
They Braxton boggle and thygomaxic. So it sounds like we could make a really badass medieval game thinking about rats and the things they do.
Totally. And yeah, this is a bit of a digression, but just thinking about whiskers as these sensory apparatuses and how many whiskers they have, and so all those points of sensation, it just sounds so kind of complex and wonderfully multiply sensory. Yeah, it's a way of being that's just incredibly fascinating, how their embodied experience of the world, what must that be like?
Yeah, I think it's wild. I can't remember where I read it, but someone also saying that, and I promise I'll let you go now, but someone saying that earthworms can taste over their entire body. Oh, I forget which author it was, but it was just her. At some point, she realized that when she had earthworms, the idea of putting an apple core into the earthworm's territory and that they would taste the apple over the entirety of their body. Like, imagine taste through your whole body. It's just, thinking about sensory experience is really awesome.
Oh, of course. And actually, so there's also arguably a cultural component to rat sociality. So an article by the author Schweinfurth outlines how rats show local differences in their hunting techniques, where some, for example, will raid bird nests, while others will fish for small fish. Others still will dive to collect mussels. So yeah, these really nuanced cultural differences and social worlds of rats emerge once you start to pay attention to them. They can also be empathetic and incredibly helpful. In a series of unethical experiments, rats were found to act to free their trapped and distressed companions, also to share chocolate chips with each other. And wild and domesticated rats will often help each other groom hard-to-reach places, and they'll even sound alarm calls to warn other rats of nearby danger, even though that might risk exposing them to potential predators. Exposing the one who sounds the alarm to potential predators. And of course, rats are individuals. Their emotional lives vary widely depending on their individual personalities and the context in which they live. The author Jonathan Balcombe discusses how the three rats who he adopted, Veronica, Rachel, and Lucy, each have very different preferences and they seek out enjoyment in different ways. So, for example, Veronica takes great pleasure in running on her exercise wheel. Meanwhile, Rachel really prefers to play hide and seek under this old curtain that she really likes. And then Lucy actually sees the running wheel as just a superb toilet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was delightful. And I have to say, you're really good at kind of highlighting both these big structural things and these big world movements of rats, but also highlighting how they are individuals with differences. And that's sometimes difficult to do. So thank you. Thank you so much for this week's highlight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to Animals in Philosophy, Politics, Law and Ethics, A.P.P.L.E, as well as the Biosecurities and Urban Governance Research Collective for sponsoring Season 5 of the Animal Turn podcast, where this content was extracted from. Thank you also goes to Amanda Bunten-Walberg for being an incredible co-host, and to Rebecca Shen for doing and designing the episode and podcast artwork. This episode was edited by Christiaan Mentz and produced by myself. Just a reminder to please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. This is The Animal Highlight with me, Claudia Hirtenfelder.